Hello, my name is Ivy Johnson, and I chose to do my presentation on STDs and STIs, what you need to know. So, an overview. STDs and STIs are sexually transmitted diseases or infections. These include chlamydia, gonorrhea, genital herpes, human papillomavirus or HPV, syphilis, and HIV. These are diseases or infections that are spread from sexual contact, intravenous drug use, and contact with infected bodily fluids. These diseases are not always caused by sexual contact, but this is how they primarily are spread. The primary difference between STDs versus STIs, obviously sexually transmitted diseases, are the ones that are long term. So that's your HPV and your HIV, genital herpes, etc. And then the STIs are the infections. So those are the ones that are short term. So those are your gonorrhea, your chlamydia, syphilis, the ones that can be cured with antibiotics. So the spread of these diseases and statistics, the spread of these diseases are reaching epidemic levels in California. As of 2018, these are the numbers. So there was 25,344 cases of syphilis in all ages, which is roughly 265% more than 10 years ago, according to CDPH. And then there was about 79,000 for gonorrhea, which is 211 more than 10 years ago. There's 232,000 cases of chlamydia, which is about 56% more than 10 years ago. And there are nearly 7 out of 10 early syphilis male cases were among men who had sex with men. And then in 2018, there was 15% of women who were of childbearing age who were diagnosed with syphilis and were pregnant. Obviously, these are dramatically higher than they were in the past, 265% higher than 10 years ago. That's insane, considering 10 years ago was only 2009. So a lot has changed, but you would think these numbers would be getting lower, but they've gotten higher. So the next page, how STIs and STDs are spread. So STDs and STIs are commonly spread from having vaginal, oral, or anal relations with a person who has one of these diseases. Sexual intercourse does not have to occur in order for transmission to occur. Herpes and HPV, which HPV is one of the strains, is what causes genital warts. Can be spread from skin to skin contact, meaning that transmission does not always have to be sexual. So in this little diagram, it shows skin to skin contact with infected areas, including thighs, scrotum, vulva, penis, anus, touching below the waist. So if you touch somebody who's infected and then touch your mouth, your eyes, your vagina, your etc., you can infect yourself through them. Oral sex. It's a myth that you can't get genital herpes on your mouth, but because there's two separate strains, there's the herpes 1 and the herpes 2. So the herpes 1 is the one that is typically known as the oral herpes, and then there's herpes 2, which is the genital herpes. And it's typically, people think, like, there's a myth that you can't get one, you can only get one orally and you can only get one genitally, but it's actually not true. Both of them can infect both places. It's just not as likely. So if you have oral herpes and you have oral sex with somebody, you could transmit that to their genitals. Kissing in infected mouth areas, so passing that herpes 1 back and forth. Anal sex, eye infections, so you can get gonorrhea, chlamydia, and herpes in your eyes, which is terrifying. Oral region, so herpes, syphilis, gonorrhea, and Hep B, you can get all of those in your mouth. Finger spread, so again, touching yourself and then touching somebody else. And then genital region, entire region can be infected, especially for herpes, HPV, syphilis, I don't know, chancroid, and others. How common are STDs and STIs? STDs and STIs are very common within young adults and teens. The CDC estimates that there are about 20 million new cases of STDs and STIs each year, with roughly half of these cases being in people ages 15 to 24 years old. Young women are actually biologically more prone to catching STDs and STIs due to the biological makeup of their genitals. Young adults and teens are not always responsible enough to get tested, or they don't have the resources to get tested, so they don't either get tested or get tested as often as they should, causing them to be more prominent in younger people. It is very common for teens and young adults to have more than one partner as well. You're typically more active with multiple partners within your teen and young adult years than you are as you get older, because you get married and more monogamous. Teens and young adults are less likely to have sex-related conversations with their physicians, either because their parents are present or they're afraid that the physician will go back to their parents and tell them what they're talking about, or simply because they're shy and just less comfortable talking about sex and sex-related conversations. How can we prevent the spread of STDs and STIs? So obviously use condoms, female condoms, dental dams. They don't protect against everything, but they protect against a lot. Limit your number of partners. Obviously, each partner you have sex with or have sexual relations with, you're also risking the potential of catching anything that their previous partners have had. So obviously limiting the number of partners you have limits your risk. Getting vaccinated against any of the ones you can get vaccinated against, your HPVs and your hepatitis B and all of those. Speak with your partner before starting a sexual relationship. So have a conversation, talk about getting tested, talk about using condoms, talk about anything that could cause transmission. Get tested regularly. So they recommend like 3 to 6 months or in between partners. So if you're someone who has a new partner, every month or two, get tested in between each partner. If you're someone who has the same partner, get tested at least twice a year. And then educate yourself. Be aware of what to look for, and know that STDs and STIs don't always have symptoms. So that's why it's so important to get tested, because there's ways that you just don't know. What can we do as educators? So incorporate sexual education within your curriculum, which I know this is really hard if you're not a health teacher, but there are ways to be sex positive and just offer a safe space for your students to talk, allowing yourself to be someone that they feel comfortable to come to and have a conversation with if they don't have a safe adult to talk to. Provide both online and local resources for teens in your classroom. So this means like the local clinic, how they can provide any sort of services. And in California, it's teens are able to have access to free healthcare through Family Pact if without their parents knowing. So it can be completely confidential, and they can get healthcare provided by either Planned Parenthood or a local clinic that takes that, and just having those resources available. Teach about the importance of getting tested rather than teaching to look for symptoms. So again, they don't always prevent symptoms. So it's more important to teach about prevention and getting tested. Avoid pictures and scare tactics. So I know when I was in 8th grade, they came out with all the photos and just try to terrify all of us of STDs, but that's not what STDs always look like. So when you come out with those pictures and this idea of what STDs look like, teens might pass up a minor symptom thinking that, oh, it doesn't look like what that image they showed me, so I know it's not true. It also we want to encourage a positive attitude towards sexual health. So these scare tactic pictures, all of that, it's not healthy and it doesn't help. And then my resources.